Training camp is behind us, and while the regular season is still almost 2 weeks away, the practices are here and they are as real as they get as the Birds prepare for games that count. Barrett and I are always in mid-season form, so let's huddle up. All right, welcome into Birds Huddle, powered by PointsBet, alongside the man, the myth, the legend, Barrett Brooks. I'm Amy Fadool.
In my own mind, huh?
Yeah, well, that's true. In my mind, too, though. Preseason, as we know, speaking of minds, is a distant memory, and the regular season is in the not-too-distant future, less than 2 weeks away. So, Barrett, how does the focus change when you're a player and you're in that, and you've put the one chapter behind you, and now you have to get ready for when the games really count?
Well, this is where, you get paid for. You're going to get big-time game checks now, and that's number one. Number two, every game counts. Every rep counts. You're trying to bank stuff going into the season, so you start positioning yourself and jogging position at the end of the year when we get into the playoffs. Everybody's ultimate goal right now is to win a Super Bowl. Everybody's 0-0, and this is the time where you put all that stuff in, and all the hard work you did in camp comes into this point right now, where you're trying to fight for that chance to play in the Super Bowl.
Well, the Eagles have nearly 2 weeks to get ready for the start to hopefully a Super Bowl finish. But Lane Johnson says the work, as Barrett mentioned, does start right now.
This week is going to be a grind for us, trying to get us in extended long drive situations and, really get ready for the first game. So, whatever adjustments we have to make week one, we will. But, we're in there with a full head of steam.
It is time for Barrett's three-point stance, presented by your Mercedes. Barrett's first stance: the trenches will be Howie's toughest roster positions to cut. And it's not just because you're an O-lineman.
No, that's not because I'm an O-lineman, but this is how you win championships, with the offensive line. They banked on this for a long time, that your offensive line is where you're going to base. Offensive line and defensive line is where you base your team at. And they don't, make it any surprises. They got the best offensive line coach in the NFL, and Stoutland has some tough picks to go out there. I mean, you got guys that, are marginal guys that'll probably start somewhere else. A guy like Jack Anderson, Coyote Owosika. One of those guys have to be picked from to see if they're going to make the opening day roster. They're only going to keep 9 to 10 offensive linemen. So when I look at the starters, you got Jordan Mailata, Dickerson, Kelsey, Sayamalo, and Johnson. We know they're penciled in. They're starters, the best offensive line in the NFL. But then behind them, you got Dillard, former first-round pick. He makes the squad. Opeta, they love him. They love the physicalness that he plays at. You got Juergens. He's the second coming of Kelsey. This guy can play. At this point, I can see him also coming in and playing guard if somebody goes down. But then, you got a guy like Jack Driscoll. Jack Driscoll can play every position down there with the exception of center. And if you gave him a couple reps, he'd probably play that also. So that's 9 guys right there. Now you got to go in and see, all right, who are the other guys you're going to have on this team, whether it be on practice squad or the 53-man roster. At this point, Jack Anderson is a guy that I think can make it happen. He can go out there and play guard, center, and tackle. Versatile guy. They love players like him. So I think he makes the squad for that 10th guy. But then you got a guy like Coyote Owosika. This guy, for the last 2 years, has only gotten better. He had a tough camp, during the preseason. But at the end of the day, he's still good enough to make it happen. On the defensive side, you got your guys who are going to be here. You got Graham, Sweat, Barnett, Jackson. All those guys are going to make it. But then you have the outskirt guys, a guy like Pat Johnson, who showed that he should be here as a rush-in/defensive end guy. Then you got Marvin Wilson. Man, this guy, he's done enough. He had a physical camp. He showed that he can go out there and play at zero technique. I like him a lot, but probably making a team, it's going to be hard. Then Marlon Tuapolo, you know who I'm talking about. He's a guy, second-year guy. I didn't know if he could play, but he showed that he can come in and give you some quality reps. So he's got some huge decisions as far as guys that are in the trenches that he has to make some quality calls on.
Yeah, that's why it's always a very big deal.
They're going to go up and scoop them up. Everybody else is going to scoop them up.
That's the thing. If it's somebody else's trash, it's another person's treasure in this case. Well, the second stance from Barrett, reports leaking out. We got quarterback Carson Strong and safety Jaquiski Tartt already on the cut list. That has to be finalized tomorrow by 4 o'clock. So, Barrett, as you point out, combined, that's only $800,000 of guaranteed money. Howie, though, still cut those players.
That's crazy to me, because when you have a guy that his contract, $500,000 guaranteed to Tartt, and they still cut him, I mean, that's hard to do, man. That's hard to do. And then you got, was a free agent that a priority free agent in signing was Carson Strong. I really thought he was going to make the team, at least come in and compete for that, that third position. He didn't get many reps at all during the preseason games, and they gave him a $20,000 signing bonus and guaranteed $320,000 for his contract. So both of those guys got cut. Tart will get $500,000, and then you got to look at Carson Strong. He's already got $20,000 in the bank, plus he's guaranteed $320,000. So, I mean, I don't know what happened or what they did, but the mere fact that they cut him, that's kind of crazy, because I thought those two guys, when they first signed them, would be day ones and come in and really be good players for this team. Tart he didn't show me a lot. In fact, I see why the 49ers cut him. I think he needs to get a little bit more fast. I don't know, you get faster when you get older like that, but he didn't show sideline to sideline quickness that I thought he was going to have. He didn't show that explosiveness that I saw when he was with the 49ers. At this point, I understand why, but hey, they don't have much better behind him to really take his place. So he might be one of those guys that say, all right, we're going to sign you later on after you clear waivers, and then, sign you back when we have to guarantee that salary that you have.
That is the important caveat right there. We're going to get more on some of those big cuts coming up with Dave Zangaro. But your final stance, it takes zero athleticism to be in shape. Explain this to me.
Because, what I saw was kind of disturbing in the game. I saw guys out there that were hunched over, bending over, hands on the hips. You shouldn't see that with guys trying to make the squad. We had 3s and 4s and 2s out there playing. And yeah, I understand they played against the Miami Dolphins #1s. But then after that first quarter, when those guys were out, then they're playing against even Steven, their second team, their third team, and they were still beating up on us. And it seemed like our tongues were dragging out there. There is a question about these guys being in shape. I don't know. I haven't been able to see practice lately. I don't know if guys are running before and after practice. I know when I was playing, that I had to do a little more extra running, during this time period to make sure I was ready to go into the season and be ready to play an entire game. These guys haven't played an entire game yet. So, you got to do a little bit extra, a little bit running, a little bit of whether it's rope work or sprint work or whatever it takes to get your body used to being tired, because fatigue will make cowards of us all. I need to see guys, look a little more shape going into yes, I'm not in shape like that. I'm in shape. Yeah, I'm around right now. But when I was playing, best believe that I was out there.
You're ready.
Making sure
You're ready.
I took care of the intangibles. Whether I could play every single play, I could. I was in shape. I made sure, number 2, that I knew my playbook. And number 3, I didn't care who they put me out there. As long as they called my name, I was going to go give it all every single play.
Yeah, and you don't want to give them any reason to have your name on the cut list.
Not something that I can control.
Exactly.
You know what I'm saying? You're going to cut me, it's because you just hating on me. That's why you cut me. Because I made sure I was always the most in shape guy at my position at that time.
And
so
always
you got to play.
Always available.
Got to make it happen.
Best kind of ability is availability. It is time now to get the bird's eye view with our Dave Zangaro. He joins us now from the NovaCare Complex, where the Birds are now preparing for the regular season. The training camp is over, preseason is done. So Dave, let's take a look first at those wide receivers. We know who the top guys are, but some tough calls are going to have to be made beyond the top of the depth chart for the wide receiver spot. How do you see the decisions shaking out?
Yeah, some really tough decisions there. And I will say the wide receiver core in general is so much deeper than it was this time a year ago. Last year, I went into the season with Jalen Reagor as the number 2. This year, he's probably the number 5 on this roster. So, yes, I still think he's going to be here once they get the 53-man in place. But at the top, you have A.J. Brown, Devontae Smith, Quez Watkins, Zach Pascal. I think Reagor's the 5. There's a chance they might only keep 5, and that would mean they have to cut some really talented players like Deion Kane, Britton Covey, Devin Allen. And I think even if some of those guys get cut, they'll be back here on the practice squad. It's a good problem to have, but this is a much deeper receiver room than they had even a year ago.
Yeah, it is a good problem to have, Barrett.
If you look at it, there's some quality guys. We haven't been this deep at any position ever, but especially at the wide receiver position. And when you look at a guy like Deion Kane that did everything he could do to be on this team, I mean, he caught everything thrown to him. With the exception of the last game, he did a lot to make sure that he could be on this team, and he's not going to be there. Covey at this point was supposed to be a #1 return man and slot guy that can come out and spell guys at times. Didn't work out for him. So Howard Roseman has some decisions that's really, really going to be tough for him going into this year.
Now, speaking of tough positions, another position that has some interesting calls that need to be made, secondary. Dave, I'll start with you. How do you see that unit shaking out before the cut deadline?
Yeah, I mean, specifically the safety position is still one. We've worried about it all spring, all summer, and here we are, not that far from week 1. And I still think there's a legitimate reason to be concerned about the safeties. They cut Jaquiski Tart on Monday, so he's out of the picture. I mean, it leaves you with Marcus Epps, Anthony Harris, and then some question marks. Is Kayvon Wallace going to be on this team? What about Andre Sachere, who's a special team standout? Reed Blankenship from Middle Tennessee State has done everything he possibly could to make this roster. If he doesn't make it, he's going to be one of the final guys cut. And then you have some players like Josiah Scott, Josh Jobe, who have probably earned roster spots, but they're a little banged up. You kind of go through the rest of the roster, and it's not that hard to figure out. What they do in the secondary, to me, has the most intrigue going into Tuesday.
Yeah, Barrett, this is one of the big question marks when you think about it. That secondary, not as much depth as maybe they would like for the Eagles.
Yeah, you know, when they cut Tart, I thought Tart, when he first got here, was going to be a guy that was going to be on the team just because, you know, he had a lot of prowess coming from the 49ers, starting for the 49ers, but then turns around, get here, and shows he just didn't have it. You know, it's a reason why they let him go. And then, you know, you look at, you know, this position being a position of strength years past, but now it's one of those positions where it might be the weakest position on the defense, might be on the squad. So I don't know, Josiah Scott, because he's a multi-dimensional player because he plays corner and they made him potentially a safety, he might make the roster. And Josh Jobe, you know, even though he's hurt right now, I think he showed enough to make this squad going into the season.